Today, we're going to talk about how I am making sense of my pantry, making sense of my purchases, and how some of the things that are in my pantry I am no longer buying, and I'm going to tell you why. Inflation has hit hard for so many people. So many items are just so overinflated in price nowadays that sometimes it helps to take stock of what we have in our pantry and whether or not it's really benefiting us, whether or not we even need to replace it when we use it up. And if we have some weird things in there, how can we benefit from using those up? Right now, every penny counts. I have always believed that pennies add up to dollars. And I know they stopped making pennies, but they still add up. And we have to take that seriously. Today, I'm going to tell you about some of the things I'm no longer purchasing and some of the things I'm using up to make sense of my pantry and my purchases. Sometimes we don't think about how much things change. Our tastes change as we get older. Our recipe choices change. There are so many options now for new recipes, and sometimes our old favorites are still there, but sometimes we make them a lot less, or we have new favorites that we start making. But we just keep purchasing some of the things we've always purchased, just like we were still making those old recipes on the regular. I found this to be true when I started really honing in on my likes and dislikes lately and looking at what I had in my pantry and how long it had sat there. And I realized there were some things that I had just stopped purchasing. There were some things that we had stopped making recipes with. There were some things that I just don't buy anymore, and I don't even think about it anymore because the prices are just too high and I'm not willing to pay that. Shrinkflation is real, and there are some things that are just now not even on my shopping list anymore. So once they ran out, they did not go back on my shopping list. So I'm going to tell you about some of those decisions that I made in this video, and maybe you'll think about your own pantry, your own purchases, your own likes and dislikes. What recipes have become the norm now versus maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and we can make better sense of our purchases. So the first thing that came to my realization here a while back is we don't really use red enchilada sauce, but yet I still had 4 cans in my pantry that I had picked up when they were on sale. But it has been forever since I had used red enchilada sauce. So I shared a recipe with you here a while back on one of my videos where I used a couple of those cans up and I made some chicken tortilla casserole. But when I made that, I realized that we really prefer green. We've switched over from red to green. We don't usually use red if green is available in the pantry, and I had just stopped using red, but yet I had still purchased 4 cans when they were on sale, and there they sat. So I made the decision that once we use up that red, I'm not rebuying it. We don't eat red anymore. We only eat green. So those are some things that I'm taking a look at in my pantry. They just don't make sense for me to stock both anymore. The second one is cream corn. I grew up on cream corn. We had it over mashed potatoes. We had it a lot. My kids liked it when they were growing up. We had it a lot, but my husband and I just don't eat it anymore. In fact, he doesn't even like cream corn. So that took it out of my menu cycle. So when I make like a potato soup that is just for me, just for the days that I'm home by myself for lunches, I'll throw in a can of that cream corn and make like a cream corn potato chowder, and I'll use up that cream corn. It will bulk up that dish, and I won't buy cream corn anymore. That is off my list. The third one is instant potatoes. Now, my mom, I think she grew up where potatoes were being peeled every meal. She grew up during the Depression. They had a cellar with potatoes. And when I grew up, I guess she was tired of peeling potatoes because instant potatoes were probably a relatively new thing in her lifetime, and we only had instant growing up. Well, once I grew up and had the real thing, I didn't want instant, but for some reason, I would stock some of those because my mother always did. And now I have instant potatoes and I never use them. So to use those up, I'm adding them to soups when I want to thicken it a little bit. Sometimes if I have ramen, I'll make some potatoes on the side, but I'm not going to be restocking instant potatoes because we just don't eat them. So that's something that can go off of my shopping list. And these things that are going off of my shopping list will make room in my pantry for the things that we do eat now and the things that we do use now. The next one is instant rice, rice-a-roni, 90-second rice. I don't buy any of those anymore. Now, I had a recent car camping trip where you saw me buy some red beans and rice that were instant 90-second rices. I was in the desert. I put them in my back window to heat them up so I could just eat them straight out of the package. That was rare. We don't buy 90-second rice. We don't buy rice-a-roni. It has gluten in it. I make it from scratch. If I make it, my husband can't have gluten. And we don't buy any type of instant rice anymore. I'm no longer working. I have time to make rice from the whole grain. So back when my kids were growing up, I bought a lot of instant rice because I needed to make meals in a hurry when I came home from work, and I just always bought it. But that went off of my list. We haven't had any in the pantry in a long time, and I don't miss it. And next one is canned tuna. Tuna is a great value, but we stopped buying the canned kind. You have to drain off the juice, and yes, you can use it in other things, but we found that the packaged tuna actually has more weight by volume of actual usable tuna because it doesn't have the water in there. And so we switched over to that. Not only does it have more usable tuna, it also costs less. We switched over to the Great Value brand from Walmart. My husband likes it just fine, and we no longer pay $1 to $1.25 for a can of tuna. We switched over to that 88-cent tuna, and we have more tuna, less waste, and less cans in my pantry, and I saved some money. The sixth one is crackers. I thought about this the other day when I bought some of those Crunchmaster crackers that I showed you from Sam's. We buy those because they're gluten-free. Well, we've switched over where we all just eat those. My husband eats them, I eat them, and I don't even stock other crackers. And then I started thinking about why I don't stock other crackers. Yes, there's the gluten factor, but just recently in our sale ad from our grocery store, one 8.5-ounce box of wheat thins was $4.99. Woo! 8.5 ounces of wheat thins, $4.99. That's why I stopped buying crackers, and it just dawned on me. It wasn't that I don't like crackers or that I wouldn't eat crackers. It was that the price and the size of the package just didn't make sense for our budget, and so we just eliminated those from our budget. Now, once in a while, I'll buy the oyster crackers. I do still like to keep those on hand, but any other type of decorative or buttery crackers, I've stopped buying all of those. Now, if I found a blowout sale, I would probably still stock those up, but I haven't seen that, and it just doesn't make sense to spend that much on that little. The next one is chips. Now, chips have really been hit by shrinkflation. Last week in the sale flyer for our grocery store, 4 packages were $10. Now, if you just think about that, that sounds pretty good, $2.50 a package of chips. But for 7.5 to 9-ounce bags, that is terrible. And when you pick up one of those bags, you realize how small those are. And even at $2.50 on sale, they're not worth the money. So if we buy chips or when we buy chips, I get them at Aldi. They are still 13-ounce bags. They are relatively around the same price, like $2.29 a bag, only you get a lot more. We like them just as well. Now, I only get chips if we're having like chili and I want some sort of corn chip, or if we're going camping and I want a potato chip. We just don't stock chips regularly. You would look in my pantry right now, there's no chips in there at all. They have to be purchased for a special reason, or we don't keep them here, because I don't look at them as real food. I look at them as a snack or as a addition to something that I'm making. Like if I'm making a Frito chili pie or something like that, I will get my corn chips at Aldi where they're $1.49, and it will make more sense. But I just don't stock them, and they just cost too much for too little. Now, there's going to be exceptions to every rule. And one of the things that I've noticed is I've started moving to frozen items instead of fresh. Strawberries have seen shrinkflation. One of these last few videos, I showed you where they were selling half loaves of bread. And I cautioned you to think about how that didn't used to be normal. And now there's a whole section for half loaves of bread that cost as much as a loaf of bread used to cost. Well, I saw this with strawberries. There was tiny little packages of strawberries for what I used to come close to paying for a full package of strawberries. They're trying to fool us into thinking it's a good buy by just selling us like 9 strawberries for $1.59. I'm not falling for that. So I have moved over to the frozen section, and I'm getting a pound of strawberries for like $2.86. And then when I want them, I just thaw them out. I used to think I didn't like frozen strawberries. They're really tasty, and they're already prepped for you, and you can use them as you want. They don't go bad. You don't have to worry about them spoiling in your fridge or using them up fast enough. We've done the same thing with blueberries. Blueberries are so expensive, but I can still get a pound of blueberries for $3.19. Keep them in the freezer. My husband can throw them in his oatmeal, and I can make fresh fruit with the frozen blueberries. So I have adapted to switching to some things that are frozen instead of fresh. Another thing is I keep frozen orange juice in those little containers in my freezer. I grew up on that frozen orange juice concentrate. All there is in it is orange and orange juice concentrate. There's no sugars, there's no anything added to it. I have seen the price of orange juice lately. It is crazy priced unless you can find it on markdown. And sometimes I do. But otherwise, as the norm, we use the frozen kind when we want orange juice. I can throw it in the freezer. I don't have to worry about a date or worrying about it going bad. It can stay in there until we have the hankering for orange juice, and then I can pull it out right then and make it. And then there are some things that I've adapted to fresh instead of frozen, but I have to really have a good price to do that. The same with substituting items like mandarins. Sometimes I can catch mandarins at a really good price. And if I can catch mandarins at a good price, then I can skip that orange juice. Those are extras. And I'd rather have some fresh fruit than some juices anyway. Juices are just a icing on the cake now. They're not a norm. When my kids grew up, we had a lot of juices. I thought it was important for them to have vitamin C. Now we have adapted to moving over to more apples, bananas. If I can catch mandarins at a good price, we just have some fresh fruit around, and no juices are made up in the fridge. And that is one of the ways that I'm adapting to inflation and also being able to keep vitamin C in our diet. Recently, we had a gathering with my son and daughter-in-law, and I offered to bring the guacamole. Now, sometimes you can catch guacamole at a really good buy, like maybe buy one, get one, or you can find it on markdown. But I found avocados for 49 cents each. I already had tomatoes. I already had garlic salt. I already had lime juice. I had onion tops from my garden, fresh green onion tops. And I decided I was just going to make it from scratch. And I've done this many times. The only difficulty I have with that is in Kansas, they sometimes don't know how to stock the avocados. They will pull all the ones that are ready to be used right now and just leave the really hard green ones. And if you buy those, sometimes they ripen, sometimes they don't. It's the same with bananas. They'll put out these really green bananas. Sometimes you can buy them and they will never ripen. So this time I lucked out. They had avocados marked down to 49 cents. They had the kind that was ready to use right now. And so I made homemade guacamole, and I'm going to share that with you next. Here is my harvest from today. I have my green onion tops. I'm going to chop some for my guacamole and freeze the rest, and my first little pepper of the season. I've chopped up some of my grape tomatoes that are really small. I probably put in about 8 or 9 of them. I also chopped up some of my onion tops, very, very small. And then all I'm going to add to this is going to be garlic, salt, lime juice, and my avocados. That's all I use to put in them. And look at these avocados. They are absolutely perfect to make guacamole. The avocados were absolutely perfect to just be able to mash them up with a fork. That's all I used to prepare them. And then I just kind of eyeball how much garlic salt and lime juice to put in there. And then I just do a taste test. Now, I actually over-salted this. I normally don't use 5 avocados. I normally make a lot smaller batch. And when you over-salt something, what you can do to correct it on the guacamole is just add more lime juice and more tomatoes, and that totally fixed it. And look how much more I got for the price. Guacamole prepared in the store is so small and so expensive, even if you catch it on sale. And this made enough for 6 people. We love guacamole. Avocados are supposed to be a healthy fat, so this was a really affordable addition to our taco bowls. I hope this video has helped you think about what is in your pantry. Are there some things you can use up creatively? Are there some things you no longer need to put on your shopping list? Are there some things that can open up space for the things that you really do want to stock? Thanks for listening today. I appreciate your time. Give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in the next one.